Welcome and thank you for joining us for another of GG&A's webinar series designed to help our clients and others respond to these fluid and challenging times. My name is Pete Lasher. I'm a Senior Vice President and the leader of GG&A's higher education practice. And I am absolutely pleased to be joined today by Rob Gabowski, the Vice President for University Advancement at the University of Buffalo. Rod, thanks for joining us today.
Pete, it's my pleasure. Glad to be here and join you.
Rod, one of the most impressive things about your career is that you've held leadership positions at a number of diverse institutions, the University of Cincinnati, universities of North and South Florida, and now the University of Buffalo, where you're leading one of the most successful campaigns in the school's history. How would you describe your career arc, and what advice do you have for advancement professionals who aspire to lead organizations?
You know, Pete, I think back, to answer this question, I think it's important for people to understand a little bit more, even further back, because when I first got into the nonprofit sector, I was actually working for a nonprofit organization, and I felt, more social service type of organization. And when you're fundraising and doing program development for a smaller organization, where we truly had to go and get a ream of paper donated in order to print some stuff to hand out to volunteers, I really felt like, in many ways, as an employee, I was the nonprofit. And when I finally decided to follow my passion to follow higher education, because it truly is what has given me, I'm a first generation high school graduate, let alone college graduate. And so it was donors that invested in me that allowed me to go to school or go to college. And I felt a passion to be able to give it back. But I made a very conscious decision early in my career that when I made the jump, I was with a couple of small private universities, about 2,000 students total. And when I made the jump to public, I could have at that time made the jump to become a vice president at a smaller private. And I really decided not to do that. I really wanted a broader experience at a larger public university that helped me understand the size and the scope of staff and how I could develop my people skills, my management skills, my leadership skills. And so when I made that jump to publics, I first started at a regional public university, then made it all the way to like the University of South Florida. When I joined it, it had us about 47,000 students on 3 campuses and very complex. And I've stayed in that complex R1 public research university area since then. And it really was a conscious choice on my part to stay in that arena, because I feel like it has given me the skill set to truly develop and grow as a leader and a manager of an advancement shops.
What is it, Rob, about the public complex environment that has helped you to build the muscle of these different skills that you've described?
Well, I think ultimately when it comes down to it is that as a vice president in my role, is that my job is to lead and inspire the organization, and that's internally the team. It's also the faculty, it's the university leadership, it's even my president, because I firmly believe that a campaign actually can change the way that the university even speaks about itself, including the president. When we do a lot of speech writing for the president, and you start putting in the words into the advancement or development events, that the president starts then assuming those words and taking them on as their own. So I think that I like the complexity. I like the fact that as smaller institutions, you have to be in many ways a generalist in everything. Whereas larger public universities, you get to be a specialist and really dig deeper into what the advancement profession brings.
It's such an important point, and particularly as we think about the opportunities for advancement of younger professionals and the different paths that they can take. But in this pandemic Rod, has altered the way employees view their jobs and opportunities in every sector, including advancement. What is your take on this phenomenon?
Oh, well, and I think that actually our sector was changing prior to the pandemic. This is something that I've been a part of the Artificial Intelligence and Advancement Advisory Council that started a couple of years prior to the pandemic. And we really were paying attention to how our workforce is going to be changing, what skill sets are needed. And you think about it now, there are restaurants out there that have robots even cooking your food. It's not even human beings back there doing some of the prep work. There's so many other ways that artificial intelligence is coming into our lives. It's going to be changing our workforce. And so we were thinking then about what are the skill sets that our team members need, and how do we make sure we're prepared for that change and we're at the front of that change. Then all of a sudden the pandemic hits, and you want to talk about a crash course in using Zoom technology in our everyday work. We had all the technology in our division. We rarely used it. We still had, people getting on planes, even consultants like you, Pete. How has it changed your world? There's so many more meetings that you do now, probably via technology, versus actually getting on the plane and going seeing the client for every decision. And we continue to evaluate that even in regards to internal and externally how we approach our work. I know that I have become so much more open-minded in regards to, I even had a conversation this morning about a potential staff member that may be moving. Is there a way that we could keep that staff member as part of our team, even though they may not live in the community anymore? I wasn't having those conversations 2 years ago. The answer was no. Now, absolutely. What's the role? What's the functionality? How would it work? And because the knowledge that they have is so valuable that with technology today, we don't necessarily have to say no to that first question.
I agree. I mean, in some ways, it puts the pressure on managers to be able to really clearly articulate here are the expectations. Now, if you can deliver on those expectations, then location isn't as important.
That's right. And I think,
go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, go ahead, Ron. They want to hear from you.
It all depends upon the role and the function, and what are the expectations, and can we manage through it?
Yeah. Rod, we've spoken at length about your commitment to your staff and building the team. I wonder if you might share your philosophy and practice for developing your staff.
Yeah, and this I've done at a couple of different universities where, I firmly believe that the human resources are essential. They are the pivotal piece that makes us successful. And to be able to invest our time as a leader of an organization to make sure that we're helping our human resource capital within the organization grow and feel appreciated and learn and better understand themselves and also what they want. All these things now I've incorporated into our annual review process, where we do meaningful annual evaluations. We do at this point, we do merit increases. We do supplemental compensation based upon performance, and for the entire division. It's not just for the fundraisers. We also have conversations, career track conversations, that are based upon, we do Strengths Finder on every single one of our staff members. But what are their strengths they bring to the table? What are their interests? And really understand those so that we can talk about where do you want to go next in your career. But I also believe that, I've been through tough budget times. Every organization has. Oftentimes as leaders, one of the first things the decision is made is to cut training, cut conferences. I choose not to do that. I actually invest more in that, because this is about investing in my people to make sure that they continue to grow, they continue to feel valued. And so when you value someone, they're going to work harder, they're going to provide more meaningful input to the organization. We've created opportunities for the team to be innovative. And we've had Innovation Fridays once a month where any idea can come to the table and think about how we approach our work and maybe how we could do it different. Because when we're stagnant, that's when we don't grow, and it just is felt throughout the whole organization. And now my job is to really inspire everyone to be at the table, to be participating in that future.
But this idea of the Innovation Friday and really giving people a voice and helping to shape the direction of the program, I think gets them invested and take ownership. And I know and we'll get into it in a second with respect to the campaign, but giving them forum as you're going to meet, I guess it's tomorrow, be able to and allow them to participate. Let's come back to that one in a second. But our surveys show that retention and recruitment is the number one issue that leaders in advancement. But what are some of the other important challenges to our work, and what steps are you taking to address them?
Well, if you go outside of the talent management, if you will, because I put all human resources in that category of talent management. But we even as an organization are focusing very heavily on our digital future. What does that look like? Because we know that the use of technology and the use of data and how we make decisions, how we communicate, because this is advancement is, whether it be alumni engagement or fundraising, this is a relationship business. That is how you're going to build deeper relationships. People invest more of their time and their treasure with you when they feel more connected. And so, but we're also growing at such an exponential rate. When you have 7, 8, 9,000, 10,000 graduates a year, I can't hire at that pace in order to service from the alumni engagement and development side, the number of personnel that are needed. I just don't have the budget to do that. So we have to work smarter, and utilizing technology is allowing us to do that, so that we're doing more dynamic emails that are based upon people's areas of interests, whether it be we're not just communicating to you because you're a school of management grad. We're also communicating to you based upon where your philanthropic interests are, and if you don't have any, what are the indicators that we have to tell us, okay, maybe you clicked on an article on our website about sustainability, or are utilizing all these other services that are out there, even the Facebook likes, and knowing what you like and what you're interested in, so we can start communicating with our alumni based upon their interests, and then maybe that can possibly lead to engagement and or philanthropy in the end. But to do that en masse takes really conscious effort for us, because now we have 400,000 constituents in our database. There's no way that we can create a personal relationship with everyone via this type of technology where we're talking with you or sitting down with you one-on-one. We need to figure out a way to do it a little bit more en masse that then allows us to then focus our one-on-one time.
And what I like about what you're saying, Rod, is it's an opportunity in this particular domain for us to really think in terms of an integrative way with respect to the fundraising team, with respect to our communication folks, with respect to alumni relations and events, and really think through how can we leverage all of these resources to kind of build that dynamic relationship that you're talking about.
Well, and exactly right. And I think that we're feeling this at the University of Buffalo, is that when I got here 5 years ago, we were an organization that quite honestly was underperforming in regards to our engagement in our fundraising. And we have collectively worked together as a leadership team to figure out how do we make improvements, and to see where we were at to where we're at now. I mean, we have doubled our fundraising in 4 years. And we increased our campaign from 650 million once we achieved it during the pandemic, ahead of schedule, I would add, in that we increased it to $1 billion, and now we're still looking to hit that $1 billion goal probably within the next 12 months, ahead of schedule, 1 to 2 years ahead of schedule, because we've had 2 record fundraising years in the past 2 years. And we're looking to have another one this year, all during a pandemic. People are engaging with us in different ways and making much more meaningful gifts because we're engaging with them in the conversations about what would help them achieve their interests, and also how do they align with the university's interests. So it has to be a partnership.
So these, essentially what you're saying is our results have been anemic, and Rod, these are crazy numbers that you're throwing out there. So let me just, I mean, you credit your staff with the success of the Boldly Buffalo campaign, but can you give us just a little bit more of an update on where you are in the campaign, and what are the factors that have put you in position to raise your goal to $1 billion, to achieve these year-over-year results?
Yeah, and really what it is that we've actually increased our fundraising each of the past 4 years with actually a smaller staff size. We have realigned the staff in ways that we felt, Pete, you counsel people all the time, and that you can't approach advancement in alumni engagement in a completely democratic way, in that everyone doesn't get equal in everything, because there are certain parts of our, we're still organized by schools. We have a centralized, decentralized model of fundraising. There are certain schools that don't have the capacity to raise nearly as much as others. And so you need to invest more staff and more personnel in like our School of Medicine or our School of Management, School of Engineering, which typically those are the types of schools that donors give at a higher rate, or they're engaged at deeper levels. And we're seeing that. But, to do all of this, we've had to approach it as a team and figure out, how do we do this? Because you have to make decisions about what you're going to focus on and what you may need to let go. And that's hard, because no one ever wants to let anything slip, but we need to establish more priorities, especially in budget times. I mean, I need to make it very clear. We have increased fundraising, but our budget was flat. And if you know anything about a flat budget, when you're also told that you have to do mandatory salary increases that are unfunded by the state, you actually have a decreasing budget. And so our return on investment numbers have skyrocketed, because we're raising more money with really the same amount of staff resource or financial resources for the division. There wasn't a huge investment in us until about a year ago, and we're still trying to spend that money because hiring has become very slow in this great resignation that we're all facing. And we've experienced.
I mean, I worry that this isn't sustainable, because we know that in order to grow, we need additional investment. But speak just a little bit more to what is driven that increased ROI, given the circumstance with your staff. Has it been the larger gifts? What would you attribute to?
It's definitely larger gifts, but it goes back to within the first week that I started talking with the staff. When I use the terms about donors investing in the university versus just donating, and the investing is the donors are owning what is important to them, and they see how it aligns. I recall a conversation within the first month that a major gift officer, when I was talking with this person following a half-day retreat about how we need to focus and how we need to approach and being relationship oriented, because I noticed we were very transactional. I could tell by the gift size, and I could tell by the duration it was from nice to meet you, potential donor, to when we got a donation. And then a fair number of gifts that were coming in that after the fact, the gift arrived 6 months, a year later, we're still negotiating with the donor what you want to do with it. And I'm a firm believer that I don't want to receive the check until I know what you want to do with it. And I have given them permission to slow it down. If you don't know why a donor is giving a gift, don't accept the check. And they said, no, you don't really mean that. No, I really do. I've experienced it where I've had gifts come in once I slowed the conversation down, the gift came in tenfold what I thought was originally the gift, because the donor then, valued that investment and what they were going to be contributing to. And, it can change the narrative completely and the outcomes if we just slow down and stop worrying about getting the check deposited.
Well, this is, when I hear you say this, it just screams to me this movement from sort of a transactional form of fundraising, which is often driven by our metrics. As we've got we're incentivizing often bad behavior, and then really this emphasis on building relationships and getting to know what those are, and looking for that alignment. It's in some ways it's not the most complicated idea out there, but it's just fundamentally the way that we're going to drive growth. These relationships. Go ahead, Rod.
What I was going to also say in regards to this is that we have taken in the past 5 years, much more purposeful in regards to planning our cultivation and solicitation activities, to the point that we're not doing it just on an annual basis. We're also projecting 2, 3, 4 years out, so that we can understand where the relationship is and how do we have to move it forward. So we've instituted a very effective tier system that allows us to understand where donors are at. And that in itself has helped us greatly too in planning the work and understanding what we need to do in order for us to be successful.
This idea of these relationships, external relationships, but you alluded earlier in our conversation, and I want to go back to it, because as we look at what allows us to scale these campaigns, it's not simply a strong advancement program. It's how are we engaging other key stakeholders, our administrative leaders, our academic leaders, volunteer leaders. What have been the key factors in your mind, or the key principles that you're using as you're looking to successfully engage these different groups?
Well, I think that when I did my initial get to know the organization tour, the first 30 days when I arrived here at Buffalo, I asked senior leaders, internal and external, in regards to, I knew we were launching a public phase of the campaign 4 months after my arrival. And I asked the question, whose campaign is this? And just about every single person said, well, it's yours. And I knew that we had a really challenge and a problem. And so really worked very hard to begin the education process with volunteers and academic leaders, in that, we as the advancement organization here at Buffalo don't raise money for ourselves. So it really is getting the academic leaders to understand that you need to be the spokespeople for the investment into your programs. You don't have to ask for the money. We can do that, but we need you to be articulate in regards to what would a contribution do and how would it enhance. And that really has changed the narrative so much in regards to now having department chairs, faculty, deans, really engaging with donors in a much more meaningful way. And that ownership is felt throughout the whole organization now. And those conversations are happening, and philanthropy is really the value add. Engagement is the value add to our whole enterprise, and they're experiencing it. So you start getting a little success, and it breeds that success, and that's what has been allowing us to be a bit more explosive in regards to our engagement numbers increasing so much, and our philanthropy.
Rod, I can't avoid the question, because it's been front page news for you all, that the university has recently been named a flagship institution in New York. What does this mean for the university, and what does this mean for the advancement program?
Well, as we know, flagship designations around the country and world are significant for universities, and they mean something. And for us right now in the state of New York, we first had to start with the concept of flagship. And the governor, when she announced it in her State of the State address, actually took it further than we thought that she was going to, and where she talked about Flagship also, it's about being a $1 billion research enterprise by 2030. That's music to our ears. And in order to get that type of research enterprise at that level requires investment. But likewise, success in the research area also brings success in the philanthropic area, because we're conjoined at the hip in so many of these types of projects and initiatives. Right now, the university at Buffalo is also talking about how do we enter the top 25 of public research universities in the United States. We're currently in the mid-30s. We were in the mid-60s about 7-8 years ago, so we've jumped considerably. But the closer you get to 25, the harder it gets, because you have to displace some really impressive institutions. But we're really focusing on what does it take with philanthropy, because we're, once again, the value add to make our academic programs be the best of the best. And it is philanthropy that really is that game changer for us.
I couldn't agree with you more in terms of this idea of the research agenda and the philanthropic agenda being joined at the hip. It's just, I mean, when we look at where the big gifts are coming from in our business, it is in support of research, and so I think this is it really is a bright day for you all in that respect. Ron, our research also shows that public institutions in campaigns have double the compounded annual growth rate of those institutions that are not in campaigns. I know you're focused on finishing Boldly Buffalo strongly, so I know you're keeping your eye on the prize. I don't mean to distract you, but what are your thoughts with respect to sustaining the momentum you've created as you approach the conclusion or the conclusion of the campaign?
Well, Pete, what I would share with you, I've lived both sides of the spectrum here at Buffalo, in that not while I was here, but prior to the Boldly Buffalo campaign, we were 10 years not in a campaign. And the fundraising was basically flat. And so now Boldly Buffalo comes along, it's changing the narrative. It's changing how donors think about investing in the university. And the university now is feeling it, experiencing it. And so as we contemplate reaching goal and ending Boldly Buffalo campaign, I am confident that the very next day, we're talking about a 1 second tick of the clock. It's going to be the next campaign that, for simple terms, we have currently are naming it the top 25 campaign for the university. And we know that this is something that we need to do, because, when you look at even your historical giving trends, and we go back, decades in regards to what a campaign does and how it establishes a new floor for your fundraising. When you do a campaign average and a campaign median, we have a new floor, and we're expecting not to go below that. And generally, each campaign that we've done has doubled our fundraising from one campaign to the next. And it doesn't do it immediately. It takes a little bit of time for that. But the sooner we can launch the next campaign, the sooner we can double our fundraising. And so I'm with you. Your research shows it, and we're living it. I don't want to stop. And so there's another campaign in our future.
Exciting. All right, so let me now, with one last question, bring this back to your staff and how you manage your staff. So I understand tomorrow you're bringing your team together to talk about this. So what's your agenda for that meeting? How are you looking to engage your staff in this conversation?
Well, I have a leadership team, which consists of my executive team, which is my direct reports, and then the next layer down. So I have about 5 direct reports, and then the next layer down is another 20. So about 25 to 30 of us are coming together, because I want to have a collective conversation about, do we decide to end our campaign in June of 23? Or do we decide to go out to June of 24, which was the new end date when we raised our goal to $1 billion? We don't need that time, but do we want that time? Is the marketing and branding still effective, and will it still inspire donors? And so we're going to go through all of that. We're going to understand where we're at with we have to do a CRM conversion. We have to do a variety. There's going to be leadership transitions at the university. We've had a lot of deans transition. There's probably going to be other senior leaders that transition in the next several years. What does that mean for a strategic plan? And how do we plan our work so that we can continue to hit our stride and not lose momentum? And, Pete, I'm all about engaging with the leadership of my division to have these conversations, to weigh in and to weigh the pros and cons, and to collectively come up with a potential recommendation that we can get the president to buy into. By doing that, I think there's greater ownership by the entire team about the direction that we establish. And that makes people feel more engaged. And it's my hope that it will continue to want them to stay here so that they don't get pulled away from another opportunity at another institution, which happens just about every day.
Thank you, Rod. This first of all, a very dynamic time for you all at Buffalo, and this conversation has been extremely valuable. And I'd like to thank everyone else for joining us today. We are all learning from each other, and we've been very fortunate to be able to tap into some of the leading minds in the advancement field. If you have questions, do reach out to us. We'd love to hear it, and I know Rod would be willing to help provide answers to you. So you can reach out to us with your questions. We'd love to talk with you. And again, thank you all for joining us. And Rod, again, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Pete, for the opportunity.